say while we take a short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to you.
Hey, it's Fat Albert. Wrong channel. Hello and welcome to Platos Cave on Revolution Radio for Revolution Radio. From Australia, of course. Today down under. Nice place. There's a huge tropical cyclone just off our east coast near Brisbane. That's not good. But you know, it is what it is. It's home to ideas. Ideas are dangerous things. If you build a home for ideas, you gotta reckon on the wolf coming to blow you down. That's gonna happen. Importantly, though, the station is not beholden to anyone, which means please donate if you can. Any kind of currency is good, including crypto. That's right, any kind of crypto. Well, maybe not any kind of crypto. The most solid cryptos are probably preferred. If you can. If you cannot, that's okay too, because times are tough all over. And they're gonna get tougher. You think they're not? You think they're not? Really? We'll talk about that in a second. But if you can't, that's okay, because, you know, like I said, times are tough all over. Tell people about the station. That's good. That's a good thing. Tell people about the station. That'll, bring more people to listen and potentially more people to donate. So that's a good thing. Today is, in fact, the 6th of March, 2025. And you can catch the air on the line all the time, on the air, or on your smart device. Come on the air. The chat room is there. Come on. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home. The Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. But you know what? Archives are free. Another good reason to donate if you can, because the archives, again, are free. That's pretty good. Just go to the website. Easy to find. Pops up with a password, dialogue, and just click through that, and boom, in you go. Before we start broadcasting at you in anger, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast. And for Dave,
it's the Dark and Chum.
Thank you, sir. For myself, of course, the Iraq people, and we'd like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Thank you very much. I was away for Sunday and Tuesday. I was in Thailand. Very hot in Thailand this time of year. Very, very hot. It was very hot. I was there for work. It's a conference anyway. Nice place. Good food. But I spent most of my time indoors. In hotels they set up these big rooms, where you meet people and sit at the table. Yeah, that's kind of like what it was. But I'm not complaining. The only thing I'm complaining about is the Jetstar flight I took there and back again. That's something. That's not an experience I want to repeat anytime soon.
What, did you go cattle class?
Oh, of course I did. No one can afford business class anymore. You're insane. It's almost business class is almost as expensive as eggs, Dave. Almost as expensive as eggs.
That and toilet paper.
Father, what is this egg you speak of? Oh, son, there was a time, the golden age we called it, the golden yogi age.
The golden yogi age, yeah.
We had so many eggs.
Yeah, you know what? I read something today that we were so wealthy when we were children because if you had a lot of eggs and a lot of toilet paper, and if you decided just to throw them at someone's house, you could.
You could.
You could. Because
we could throw them away.
You could throw them away.
We could bathe in eggs if we wanted to.
So I saw a marketplace today there. Because I'm in a group up where the cyclone is coming through. I stayed there for 4 months up there, looking after my dad. My dad lives there.
Is your dad okay there with the cyclone, Oliver?
Yeah, I think he's, they're on first name basis. Alfred, George,
No,
is he okay with it? Yeah. They're friends. They go way back. I said there's going to be a cyclone. He goes, there's always cyclones. Well, there's going to be a lot of rain, probably 300 mil per day, if that, right? That's going to be a minimum. And he goes, yeah, it always rains. And I said, this storm surge, it's going to cross the coast, close to high tide. That could add a 1.5 meter storm surge, or to the tide height. And he goes, there's always storm surges, right? Like, wow, okay, that's good. It's like if you talk to someone from the bush, or from a farmer, and you go, oh, it's hot, and he goes, it's always hot. There's a drought, yeah, there's always a drought. Yeah, floods, oh, there's always floods. And and then I said to my father, the hottest 9 years on Earth since records began were the last 10 years. Right. Oh, it's always hot, right? Yeah, thanks, Dad. Yeah. To answer your question, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. I bought him extra food that's been delivered. And if he loses power for any amount of days after the storm has gone through, I'll take a generator up there. And just,
that's good. That's good.
You got to have plans.
Yes, I was going to mention that. Preparations are everything.
It's going to affect 4 million people.
Yeah, the thing is this, right? It's always been like this, but there are two factors that have changed over the years. Two factors. Mm-hmm. There are a lot more of us, so we now live in areas, or we've spread out in areas that we previously didn't, live in, didn't inhabit, and those areas may have been prone to, natural disasters. We don't know because we didn't live there. So we're spread out. So that actually happened. We are spreading out, and that's why, that's one of the reasons why there seem to be more disasters. And the other reason is there are more disasters. Okay?
I wasn't sure where you were going there.
So even in the areas that we have been inhabiting for some time are now actually being hit by certain natural disasters.
I thought
storms.
You were going to vote nationals then for a minute.
Rains. Yeah, I know, right? No. So we are living in areas we didn't live before. So that's one of the reasons of the increase, and the other one is, of course, that there actually is an increase as well, due to various factors. Again, I'm not going to blame anyone. I'm just saying there are changes in the air, and we are now seeing what's happening. Now, again, there have always been disasters, even in areas that we previously inhabited, but they seem to be happening more frequently and more severe. That's all I'm going to say about this. And so, it is a good idea to prepare, to have some. It's two things. One, if you're sheltering in place, be prepared to shelter in place for a while. Right? Dave knows all about that. Two,
totally.
If you have to leave
before
early.
It's too late.
Correct. Right. Especially, not only, but especially in fire situations. Floods are equally bad, but floods tend to. If it's we have these surprise floods, if you will. It's this. It is all of a sudden, it's the flash flood is happening, and what, and so getting away is just really hard. So that's probably not a good idea. With a fire, hopefully, you have a bit of warning and just get out in good time. Right? Of course, we've seen fire fronts in Sydney move with alarming speed. In fact, the embers were flying 20, 30 kilometers ahead.
That's right.
The fire front. That's unusual. Yeah. But that's because the winds are stronger and they carry the embers further. So, anyway, that's all I want to say.
We did see that in Lahaina. We saw that in Malibu. We saw that. We've seen that everywhere. Certainly here, as well, with the fires. Now, this cyclone's path is a crazy one. It doesn't know what it's doing. That's how it's been described.
Doesn't know what it's doing.
Yeah.
See, you know what? I have to say this. This really bothers me. We assign agency to natural forces.
Yes, we do.
So we talk about, nature's doing this and doing that. No, it's just stuff that happens.
That's right.
There is no nature sitting somewhere thinking, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that. Ha ha ha. And it's the same with, whenever we talk about it, we personify these things. Evolution, right? It really, I loved Jurassic Park. I'm sorry, but this is a real stickler for me. But I hated what Jeff Goldblum said. Jeff Goldblum said this. Yes, we are here now. We shouldn't really, clone dinosaurs and bring them back because nature selected them for extinction.
No, that's right.
That's not what happened.
There was a giant meteor.
No, what happened is they became extinct. Or, as some people believe, they didn't. The Macaulay and Bembe and other sightings of smaller dinosaurs, who knows? Mm-hmm. But the point is this: nature didn't make any choices here. There was no one. There was no committee. I didn't get that memo. Dinosaurs extinct? What? Johnson, you didn't tell me about that.
Johnson.
But that's not what happened. There's no but the way we think of this, and this is, I guess, it's a human trait, right? Now you can't have it both ways. Either you're an atheist, right, or you're not, right? If you're not an atheist, then you can do whatever. You can be a deist. You can be an animist, right? An animist believes that everything has a spirit in nature and in the world. Everything, right? There's some kind of inherent spirit, some kind of agent that drives that entity, whatever it is. Others believe, there's this natural energy that moves through things. But if you're a rationalist atheist that doesn't believe in any of this stuff, then you cannot say that nature has selected dinosaurs for extinction. Mm-hmm. You can't say it. It's not a thing, right? So, I'm sorry, Dave. It really bothers me. Really? I don't know if we spoke about this before.
I couldn't tell.
Really?
So,
he's overreacting again. Dave, put some tranquilizer in his yogurt. Sure. Why don't you?
No, I've got a really weird segue from that last quote. The red pill stopped me from screaming. But there's that's Grandpa Simpson. And look, I've got a screenshot here of the satellite imagery. And I'm a registered storm chaser, and I've been watching weather all of my life, all of it. I don't mean I look out the window. I mean I track it.
Oh, there's the weather.
Oh, there's weather. Look, no, I don't do that. No, I was the first. Certainly in my peer groups, and I was way in front of the Bureau of Meteorology and called in the 80s, in 1983, I think it was, the first East Coast low. So the East Coast low developed, I called it, and then they started calling it an East Coast low. They didn't call it the Dave low or whatever, right? I didn't get naming rights, but it was the first time that it had ever spun up, and it surprised everybody. So this cyclone, if you can see it on the screen, has two levels of motion. And there's wind shear, which is emptying the cyclone of all of the mass that is should accumulate around the eye wall, around the limbs of it, and it's all the high motion, warm convected air currents. So a very, very moist air, and you can see it just to the south, and it's just peeling straight off, and all the mass is disappearing. It's very rare for a cyclone to be a Cat 2 and it not to be organised really well, because there's a wind shear here just stealing all of the mass from it. Otherwise, it could have been a Cat 5 with the amount of mass that it's already lost in the last week. It's really nuts. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say on the cyclone. But I had the weirdest segue here to talk about, and it's so strange. You know how the Pope isn't doing very well at the moment.
No, he's not.
No, and like this is just a quick early somber mood, but I wanted to take it from the red pills. The red pills stop me from screaming. All right, I found a new Waterford Whispers News. I don't know if it's satire. I don't know. But they seem that, let's say, they have the edge on this story because everyone else was saying simply that the Pope was sedated and he's stable, not worsening. That's what stable means, right? Critical means they haven't got him stable yet. Stable is stable. It's like Venti is 20. Now, there's it's so stupid, and I don't believe that there's a reason for me to even read this out, but I had to do it. So Meki and I, we've spoken about the last Pope. Yeah, and it comes up from time to time. It's meant to be the Jesuit Pope, which is the Black Pope, which was meant to be the last one, according to prophecy. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just calling out these things because, you know, you've got a pile of things that seem to make sense and have been right in the past. Why not? Let's just call it out. So my question is there any truth to this story that I'm about to read out? And here's the quote from it. It says, "The Pope last night was said to be screaming out loud because demons were trying to drag him to hell, he said. And he had to be sedated."
Look, let's everything else aside.
Mm-hmm.
How can I best frame this?
Okay.
There are. Look, I think if you followed the Shining Side Out for the last 15 odd years, and Platos Cave for the last 4 years, you know, the things Dave and I discuss, and look into and spend a lot of time trying to get behind and into. So there are more things between heaven and earth than we learn at school. I want to say that's a given. And within the frame of reference of everyone's belief system, and again, you know, this is about living in a sea of probabilities in the quantum form. Why not a hell, a place where demons will drag you to? On the other hand, because he's got pneumonia in both lungs, he's 88 years old. He's heavily medicated. He was on an artificial respirator.
That's right.
And I don't know if he's got a fever, but if he's got pneumonia, chances are he's got a fever.
Yeah. So
this could be a fever dream.
It could
be.
Yeah.
So, and because of his frame of reference, right? Because well, this is going to sound funny, but you don't get much more Catholic than the Pope, right? So
there you go.
You'd think. So in his frame of reference, demons are a thing, and if you've got a fever dream that way hallucinating, then I think it's absolutely possible that, you know, these hallucinations, if they are hallucinations, would go that way, right? So yeah, look,
I think you explained that very well. That since I saw that story, then I found, this must come up, and if you're a religious type and you have an end of the world card, like you're going to buy coffees, then you must have a free one by now, because the end of the world has been called so often in the last 40 years. I don't know. I think I'm on my third card.
This is my fifth Armageddon.
I get the next one for free. All right, so this is a post on Twitter, and it says, "Is the Antichrist going to appear soon?" And it's a person doing a piece to camera about this. It looks like it's originating from TikTok. It's not terrible. It just says, "The Vatican has reported that end times are unfolding, and the question is, will the Antichrist appear soon?" And then I found, so I'm doing that, and, you know, I can't help myself. So I Googled who would likely be the Antichrist. Now, I'm not going to read any of those suggestions out because that's just crazy talk. But if you were to use your own imagination, not you specifically, Meki, but, you know, if you're the listener, have a think about who you might call out for that. Who might be the person that you could think would be the Antichrist? I don't know.
Well, what we do know...
We've got some candidates.
Well, look, not to be funny, I mean, according to Bible scholars and so forth, there's a very strong possibility that the Antichrist, also called the Prince of Peace, is a non-religious Jew. That's what they're saying. I'm not saying it. They're saying it. It's not my
saying
opinion. I'm just telling you what
Yeah.
people are saying, right?
The man of lawlessness is also another description.
Yeah, absolutely. So, beloved by all nations, right? So not really an outsider, but rather a well-respected, let's call it, a statesperson.
What,
something.
Obama? What? That's all right.
Well, he's not Jewish.
No,
if
that's
anything, his father was a Muslim. But again, hey, you know what? Maybe.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I don't know.
What I know.
Yeah,
So
well, I don't know.
it's a really interesting question that you posed there. I mean, who is he? Who's what's going on, right? And of course, well, we don't know, right? The simple answer is, excuse me, we don't know. There are candidates. A lot of people believed, it might have been a president, it could have been this person, it could have been that person.
Mhm.
If you follow the movie, which I love, the movie series, The Omen, that's just a great franchise.
Oh, yeah.
I thought. Then it's it's just a little unfortunate child that is born to be a the Antichrist.
There's a couple of TV series now that have the devil appearing.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucifer is one, right? And there's a couple others. But look, ultimately, we don't know, and we can only guess at it, right? Which is fair enough as well. But it's a thing, right? It's possible that we're living in the end times. I mean, who knows? Again, sea of probabilities, and it's possible that the Antichrist is walking among us, right? I'm not saying he is. I'm saying it's possible, if you're that way inclined. Very interesting. I mean, if we assign a reality to this, Dave, we say, oh, yeah, look, it's something that could be. Then you have to think, oh, well, that's really messing with my worldview, right? It's really messing with my worldview if you're not believing any of this. But I believe very strongly, this is my belief, that what we believe, right, is true for us. Again, field of probabilities. Right? Think of living in a field of probabilities.
Sounds like a quantum world to me, Mickey.
That's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been indoctrinated enough, if you believe enough, if you meditate enough, if you pray enough, for you, that becomes a reality. For you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, to some extent at least, that's why some people can see UFOs and others cannot. And I really believe that it has to do with the way your mind was structured, has formed, the way your opinions flow through it, what you expect the world to be like. And if you've got a certain indoctrination, but your mind is still flexible, then you can still see them, even though you say, I'm a non-believer, but your mind is still flexible enough. If your mind is not flexible enough, then you will never see it. Right? So there's all these phenomena we see. And I liken it, and I know I've said it before, I liken it to these magic pictures, right? Where you unfocus, magic eye. That's it. You unfocus your eyes, right? It looks like a field of nonsense. What you're looking at, like a lot of colorful dots, looks like nothing. But when you unfocus your eyes, you allow them to drift, a three-dimensional picture forms. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's pretty cool. And our mind, when it comes to this phenomena, I think works in a similar way. And I think you can train yourself to become more flexible. I don't think it doesn't matter how old you are, right? If you're willing to do it and you really put effort in it, I think you can unfocus your mind.
Oh, totally. I'm doing it right now on some of the things that I've got on screen.
But you know what's really interesting? And I hadn't actually thought of it because I thought about it, and I explained this years ago as well. We did a show on, I think, on quantum theory or whatever. And afterwards, I read this book called The Dark Matter, which has now been turned into a TV show. Really good, actually, if you haven't seen it or read the book. The show is absolutely true to the book. I love it. But ultimately, what the premise of the book is, so this scientist invents interdimensional travel. How does he do it? Now, in collaboration with a friend of his who is a biochemist, let's say, he develops first of all this chamber, like a steel box, and which is completely sealed off from the outside, more so than even a Faraday cage, right? So literally nothing gets in there. at all, and it's completely disconnected from all kind of frequency differences, etc., etc. So once you're in there, you're pretty much sealed off. That's not enough. So the quantum physicist is now asking his body to develop this biochemical agent that switches off, I think it's the hypothalamus. I can't remember what it switches off, but it's part of the brain. And in this, the premise is that that's the seat of consciousness, or the conscious observer, if you will, right? And when you turn that off, I mean, you're still you, but you've turned off the observer part of your brain in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, the chamber becomes multidimensional. So it turns into a corridor with not just the one door you came through, but with an infinite number of doors you can walk down that corridor. So if this is, in a way, what it is trying to explain is the unfocusing of the mind, right? So if the double-slit experiment is run without an observer, it's a wave function. Are we agreed? I think so. If you put an observation into it, like if you put a measurement device in there, but essentially looking at it, it becomes, at the screen that is, the two slits, it becomes a two-slit pattern, no interference pattern, no wave function. It's just the pattern behind the two slits, right? What you would expect a particle to do, to move as a particle, not as a wave. And our mind, in a way, works the same way. So if you can switch off that observer that's sitting in your brain, and that's kind of the premise of the book, The Dark Matter, then you should be able to perceive other realities, right? Because you have no preconceived idea of what it should be that you're seeing. But in order to travel the multiverse, and I like the way that I think it was Blake. I can't remember his last. I can't remember the author's name. So I think it was Blake. Chris Blake. Doesn't matter. Point is, he says that your state of mind and what you picture in your mind and how you feel, like the totality of your mental state, determines what's behind the door when you open it. Right? What kind of world you will step into. What kind of thing you will be exposed to. Because, of course, there's an unlimited number of possible worlds that you could step into. Like I said, fascinating book. Something about Blake. Oh, it's going to kill me now. I can't remember the author's name. I think it's the same author that gave us a really cool TV show where they had been moved into the future, unbeknownst to them. But the human race was extinct and they were woken up to repopulate the Earth. Blake Crouch. I think it's Blake. Is it Blake Crouch? I don't think it is. Anyway, so can we then unfocus our mind enough? And I think meditation allows you to do it. I think deep prayer can do it. Drugs can do it, Dave. Right? So I don't think that people that are psychotic or schizophrenic, I don't think... Yes, there's something wrong with them, but I don't think it's a disease condition or whatever. They actually are seeing what's there. We can't. They can, but we can't. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know my household pets have watched something that can't be seen.
Yeah, Blake Crouch. I was right. It was Blake Crouch.
There you go.
Yeah, right. Exactly, Dave. That's exactly right. Because your cat. Now, see, this is where it becomes an interesting argument. Are animals self-aware? Do they have consciousness, right? Some animals do, right? Or is it rudimentary consciousness and not as sophisticated as ours that can allow the waveform to collapse? So my point is, if a cat were observing the double-slit experiment, let's say, right, would the wave collapse or not? I'd love for someone to do that experiment. I really would.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I would really love.
Are they capable of understanding what it should look like?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even go that far. See, because all it needs is a consciousness, I guess, a highly developed enough consciousness to collapse. Because they're, if you look at them, they're under the same restrictions as we are from a biology point of view.
That's right.
We look forward. They look forward, so they have linear thinking just as us, and that's why I think this whole reality here is just is created to make us think a certain way and be a certain way. And once you're down that track of thinking a certain way, it's really hard to get out of it. And again, I can, as an example, I can only give this, which happened to me recently when I was watching the Indian news channel in English, and they were talking about West Asia, the West Asian crisis. I go, huh? What? And of course, what they're referring to is what I refer to and you refer to as the Middle East. No, for India, what we call the Middle East is West Asia. Of course it is. And being in Australia, so when I lived in Germany, the East, Middle East, Far East, Near East made perfect sense from my point of view, right? Moving to Australia, it makes no sense at all. See, the Middle East, or Near East, as it's called, right, is is west of me, and the Far East, China, is also west of me in Australia. Okay, so to call it the Far East or the Middle East from an Australian point of view is a complete nonsense, right?
Yeah,
it is, because we're as far east as you can go without going back west. Okay?
I think I just heard some people's brains explode.
But that's that's where we are. It's I find it fascinating. And thank you for bringing up that Pope story, because I mean, for him, be it a fever dream or not, it could very much be a reality, right? I mean, it's who knows? Who knows? I find it endlessly fascinating.
I'm glad we were able to connect some things together there. So,
yes.
For those, just real quick, for the double slit experiment is very important, because as it's taught in schools, it just says wave is a light in a particle. That's all. Well, they're not concerned with anything else.
That's all you need to know. Move along.
Let's ignore the true potential of what it means for you to shine a light through two very thin slits on a piece of metal, laser cut into it, and the light goes through the slits. Most of it bounces off, but it goes through the slits and ends up interfering with itself and becomes an interference pattern like they're water waves, which is nice. That's nice. Isn't it nice, Mackie, when it does that? Yeah. But if you send electrons through it, it does the same thing, until you want to see where the single electron went through which slit, and you put a little detector there to see, and it suddenly doesn't do an interference pattern. Nothing else has changed. You can't hit the detector, and then suddenly you just get two painted slots. Makes no sense whatsoever. Single slot, single line on the wall behind. Double slits, it makes an interference pattern. Unless you want to see it, then it puts two slots. Because as soon as it detects that you're looking at it, it does what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to make two slots on the wall and be particles, not waves. And that's what we talk when we talk about the collapse of the quantum state. We're talking about it collapses down to what we expect to occur. And that's why I asked, I wonder what the cat would expect it to be, whether it does something else and not the wave and not the particle, but maybe it does something else for a cat. I don't know.
I'd love for someone, really seriously, I would love for someone to maybe start with the primates, closer cousins there, and then work your way down. Maybe, or when I say down, I don't mean it derogatorily. Yeah. I mean from a, I guess,
down a list,
anthropomorphic point of view. Go to dogs, go to cats, right? I mean, go to dolphins, and I reckon dolphins and whales. I think it'd be very interesting to observe. Because they move through three-dimensional space much more easily than we do.
That's right.
So while I think there's still a certain linearity to their thinking, I think their minds are a lot more adept dealing with more complex spatial problems than ours. Because they're in water. In water, you're suspended and you move around in all directions with relative ease, right? Whereas we are somewhat limited. We can't really move up unless we climb a mountain, for argument's sake, right? So I would love to see what would happen if the results were shown not to a human, but to a dolphin or a whale, for that matter. I would really love to see. But anyway, I don't have the money to run this experiment, so I gotta hope that someone else does
OPM.
At some point, somewhere. That'd be good.
Yeah. We could
but
do it. We could do it. We'd set the whole thing up.
Oh, look, it's easy enough to do, but again, it's a time and money thing, right? I mean, it's not a hard thing to do, but you do need the money and the time to do. But there's something I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
Because I watched it in its entirety from my hotel room, which was the address that Donald Trump gave to Congress.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, do watch it.
I will.
And I've never seen. Well, I don't know what the right word is here. Let me explain to you what happened. Obviously, Donald Trump went. He started giving his speech, and that's what you expect. And the houses were completely separate. On one side, you had the Republicans, on the other side, you had the Democrats, as you would expect. And there was a gallery, of course, of visitors. And there were quite a few visitors. I'll talk about that in a second. And the Republicans, I should say, wildly applauded everything Donald Trump said. I mean, the reason the speech was so long, because people were saying it's such a long speech, right?
Yeah.
In fact, the longest speech ever of this nature that a president has given. The only reason, and no one says this, but the only reason it is so long is because every sentence almost that Donald Trump uttered was greeted with roaring applause and a standing ovation. I mean, when you watch it, you see it. I reckon it added another half an hour to his speech. Okay? No, really. Seriously.
I saw some reactions. I saw some tight shots of the Democrats during his speech.
Oh, yeah, there's that as well. Yeah. They didn't move. They didn't clap. They didn't get up. But the Republicans, as well as Vance, etc., and the Speaker of the House, they're behind. I mean, if you're a Republican, you got a lot of exercise in that day. Okay? It's up and down, up and down. I mean, literally, almost everything Donald Trump said, they got up and applauded. No, I got no issue with that. You can do whatever you like. But that's why the speech was so long, in my opinion, because it was constantly interrupted. He didn't lose his train of thought, so that didn't happen. But if you constantly interrupt by applause, then for every sentence you utter, you have to count for another 10-20 seconds of applause.
Well, the full speech is an hour and 39 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, without interruptions.
Well, I don't know. I found a YouTube clip of the full.
Oh,
address.
okay, yeah, but that's with the applause. That's correct. So yeah. I reckon the actual speech, if there hadn't been any interruption at all, it's closer to an hour, even under an hour. It's my like, if you watch it, bless you, you'll see what I mean. But he did, and you know how I feel about billionaires and corporate, C-level guy. Anyway, he did what every CEO does. He gives you distractions. He did it masterfully, and most of them were completely nonsensical. But even the Democrats loved it, right? So he made this little kid, which is suffering from some kind of condition. He made that kid either an NSA or I think it was NSA agent, like an honorary NSA agent, right?
Nice. And
then another person he made into something else, and he brought in the people whose relatives had been killed by illegal immigrants, right? So completely pointless. Let me tell you why I think it was pointless, and it was just so he could get the emotional response that he wanted, right? Getting people on side. See, I'm doing something, this won't happen again. For every person that is murdered in the United States by an illegal alien or whatever, right? There's at least 20 or 30 people that are murdered by Americans. Okay. Is it a tragedy every single time? Of course it is, right? Are you going to reduce the crime rate significantly by deporting illegal aliens? Depends on what you mean by significantly. Will it reduce it? Yes, I think you will reduce it, right? I mean, if you reduce the population, then a chunk of whatever population you get rid of will have been criminals. It's just, statistics. But he was pulling the heartstrings, and it served no purpose at all, other than and they were mostly white. They weren't all white. That's not true, but they were mostly white, the people that were affected, right? And that's his base once again. but it didn't serve a purpose. There was no policy thing there. And at some point, right, Biden should never have run for president. Never. Shouldn't have happened. But I mean, that's something that's now, it's a thing. But at some point, Donald Trump has to stop blaming the previous administration for everything that's gone wrong, right? At some point, you have to own it and say, well, you know what I mean? Because he's into it now, right? And if he still says that it's Biden in a year's time or 2 years' time, then I'll be a little bit disappointed. I'll be honest with you. Because that doesn't work. Okay? It's like that CEO letter. You remember the 3 letters to the CEO?
Mm-hmm.
So this is interesting. And that's what he's doing here as well. So this CEO, calls in the new CEO into his office, or you can also say it's the president of the country, doesn't really matter, and gives him 3 letters. He says, if you are faced with a crisis, please open these letters, 1 through 3, and please do what is in the letter, and you will be able to weather the crisis. And the new person says, okay, that's great. So the new person in charge, first crisis comes along. Oh, geez, opens the letter, and it says, okay, blame everything on me and my administration. It's all my fault, right? Okay, so he goes, oh, it's, blaming everything on the previous administration or the previous CEO, whatever, and hey, presto, he survives the crisis. Second crisis rolls around, and it says, blame the economy and me as an extension. But, you blame the economy and me as well. But you shift it to the economy, and hey presto, it works really well too. The third crisis rolls around. He opens the third letter and says you better sit down and start writing 3 letters. Right? Yeah. So ultimately, at some point, you have to own it. Okay, especially if you have if you got Congress, the Senate with you, you've been going nuts with the executive orders, which is, again, you can do whatever. He's the president, everybody. You can hate him or love him. It's actually irrelevant. He's the president. He's a mandate. But you know what I find interesting? I have no idea. Let's say, for argument's sake, I'm not saying this will happen, but let's say the economy goes really south, with the tariffs and a whole bunch of other stuff, and inflation rises and unemployment rises, and the American economy goes into a recession. Let's hope not a depression, but a recession. Is there in America, and I don't know this is a question to the chat as well, and anyone out there, is there a mechanism in America where you have like a no confidence vote? I'm not talking about impeachment. I don't want to throw the guy in jail. But in Australia, what we have, or even in the Westminster system in general, or even other nations in the world, if the leader, be it the president or the chancellor or whatever you want to call the head of of government, not the head of state but the head of government, whoever that might be, if there's a feeling that this person is no longer doing their job, you can move and have a no confidence vote, which usually means, well, the person is now out, right? And you have to call elections and such, and so that essentially it brings the government down. Does America have a similar mechanism? This is something I don't actually know. Right. So
midterms are only Senate change.
That's a barometer.
That's right.
That's a barometer. But no matter how badly the midterms go, the president is still in place, right? Yeah, it might be harder for the president to do things if he loses the houses.
Yeah, they could become a lame duck.
Yeah, but but is there a motion to? And I'm not talking about impeachment. I want to be very clear here.
That's right.
Is there a motion in the American Constitution? I got to research it. I will research it. It just came to me as a thought. Let's see. Anyone in the chat, guys? So if there is, I'd be curious to understand if there is one, because that could have been, and again, not impeachment, right? But incompetence, removing someone because they've lost the confidence of the people or the Congress or the Senate or whatever the case may be, right? I'm just curious whether or not that's a thing. But it's look, Donald Trump is exactly how I thought he would be.
Impeachment is what I can see there only.
Sorry? Yeah, but impeachment, this is going too far. You see, impeachment is about a criminal action, right? I'm not saying that you need to put the president or whomever in jail or put them in the front of the courts. You're just voting that person out. In Australia, it's really easy. You don't even need the people for that. It's the party can determine whether or not they like you. So, bye. See you later, Turnbull. Someone else coming in. That's hilarious. But yeah, it's because there are mechanisms like that in other democracies around the world. They do exist. In America,
it only can be used to remove the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, but that's not the same.
No, I'm just trying to help.
Yeah. So maybe not. Maybe you can't. Maybe once the president is in for 4 years, unless he's doing something criminal, then he can be impeached. Maybe the Americans are stuck with whoever it is, irrespective of their performance.
All right. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides a framework for a motion of no confidence against the President of the United States. There you go.
Okay. Thanks, Fleddy. Fleddy just gave us that info as well. Much appreciated. That's interesting. I don't think it's ever been used, as far as I know. But look, again, I'm not saying it'll happen, but if the economy does tank, and it can, because the problem with macroeconomics is that it's really, really, really hard to predict what will happen if you do something. It's a very complex animal, right? So tariffs are going up, Canada, Mexico, China, right? And in turn, those countries are upping their tariffs. But whether or not they are upping their tariffs is actually secondary. It doesn't really matter. And I'll tell you why. Because the goods that are coming into America out of the trading nations will become more expensive, right? For the American consumer, which will drive up inflation, right? So all of a sudden, inflation is not driven by demand or volume of money in the economy. It's driven by extra costs, the real costs that are added to the end product. And companies will not absorb those costs, right? It's just not going to happen. And that's why this is a dangerous game. So the better way, if you had time, and again, he's only got 4 years, so I get it. The better way to address this economically is to build a strong manufacturing economy again in America, if that's what he wants, first. That's what you do first. And you need to, there have to be government subsidies to do that, right? That's tough, but you have to do it. And unless you're happy to have a recession or depression, right? And then you introduce tariffs after that to protect your homegrown industries, right? Because the vast majority of stuff that Americans consume comes from the outside of America. So American consumers are going to pay more. Prices are not going to be under control, right? Unless they're government intervention, or not intervention, but government subsidies. If government subsidies come in for the goods, which is sort of like a stupid thing, because once you slap tariffs on us, why would you subsidize those goods? That makes no sense, right? So I think that the cost is going to be passed on to the American consumer, and globally there will be increase in prices in general. My investments have gone down to the tune, I think, of 1 or 2% as well recently, and I checked other people as well. So the stock market is not as buoyant as it was. So there's some real world consequences. And Donald Trump acknowledged in his speech, when you watch it, you will see it. He acknowledged there will be a period of pain, but he seems to think it's going to be very, very quick. I don't know if you can build your domestic industries that fast and they can offer goods cheaper than the tariffed goods, then yes. Okay. The tariff goods are going to be more expensive. Americans will pay more. We will pay more in Australia for our stuff. But if the industries can be built up fast inside America, and really fast, and to a point where they can produce cheaper than the tariff goods, then yes, you can bring it under control. I mean, how much you bring under control and how much of an impact it will have depends on how much cheaper those goods will be than the tariffed imports.
So far, the only announcement comes from Apple to add 50,000 workers to their existing manufacturing. That's all.
See,
I'm only throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Now, but also there was the Taiwanese company TCM. Who's the chip manufacturer? in Taiwan.
Yeah.
TSMC, whatever they
Doesn't
are.
matter.
They have pledged to invest a few billion, actually a lot of fairly substantial investment in America to build semiconductors in America. So they've said they will do that. Again, that's not going to happen tomorrow, right? Because you have to build the facilities, or you have to expand the facilities, and again, that takes time. In the meantime, though, the tariffs are real, and the price increases will be immediate, right? I mean, at the pump, Dave, which is of course complete nonsense. So if OPEC raises its crude oil price by whatever, the effect on our pump in Australia is immediate, even though the petrol that we're pumping was refined probably 4 or 5 months ago, right, at the old price. But the impact is immediate, which is of course called profiteering, right? That's what it's called. So the impact should be on goods coming in, not on goods already in the stores. Okay, that's really important, right? So it's going to be interesting, because the impact will be from the layoffs in government. If you let go of a few 100,000 people, there's a knock-on effect to the economy, a significant one, right? If you put tariffs on goods coming in, it'll hit the American consumer. Right? I mean, tax cuts are good, always good, but they have to be paid for as well. So how are you going to pay for those, right? Are you going to print more money, which will, drive inflation? I don't know. I'm not seeing an economic plan. I know what Donald Trump is trying to do. What I don't see are really thought out steps to achieve it, right? He's counting, I think, on his ability to make a deal and bully people into submission. Not sure that's going to happen with China necessarily, and even unless it's a really short-term kind of impact and he gets what he wants really, really quickly, there will be an impact on the American economy. Okay? So they are, everybody says it's a bargaining tool. The tariffs have been introduced. They're there. They're real now, right? But if he keeps backing down on his tariffs, this is to Fleddy and Comet in the chat room. So if he threatens tariffs and then he always backs down on his tariffs, it'll become a very useless negotiation tool at some point, okay? Because no one will take it seriously, okay? And then if he does do it, the impact on the economy is exactly how I described it. So it's, you put the tariffs on, okay, go ahead, all right? It's really interesting. And yeah, the art of the deal was actually ghostwritten. He didn't write that book, okay? It was ghostwritten for him. Now, he collaborated, don't get me wrong. But it's really interesting to see it all develop, because there is no in-depth plan. And this is reminding me of the corporate world. In the corporate world, and this is the truth, there's very little strategy. Right? You're going from quarter to quarter, just selling more stuff, do the best you can. And there's very little in an actual true strategy that goes deep. There's a vision. But if you want the strategy to become real, you actually have to build a framework underneath it with action items and projects and tasks that lead you down the path to an outcome, right? That is not happening here. That's a problem for all of us. So I thought the speech was interesting, but Dave, I've never seen. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say this. There was a smoke. They threw a smoke grenade in the Serbian parliament, right?
I know, I saw that. Yeah.
So maybe that trumps it. No pun intended. But I've never seen, certainly in American politics, I've never seen such obvious division. I mean, it's incredible. So there was roaring applause, standing ovations on one side, and little pedals, like when you go to auction, little pedals with "this is a lie" or whatever, like fact checking him as he was making his speech.
Yeah, but
and
I don't know whether
he's
I
not
believe any of the
But look, that's not what I'm talking about.
1 minute.
What I'm talking about is the division, right, that exists.
Yeah, that's right.
And the problem is that at this point in a presidency, the president should bring the country together, and that's clearly not happening, right? That's clearly not happening at the moment. So these divisions are getting deeper and deeper. I'm just really very surprised just how deep those divisions are. Okay.
Oh, they're to the core. And
Sorry?
we've only got 1 minute.
Oh, geez, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Look, we're going to be back with you guys on Sunday. I'll have to chat to Dave about if you finish the show cycle, we'll start a new one. And there's the music. This has been Platos Cave. Thank you so much for listening. These are interesting times, everybody. So don't go anywhere. I'm sure there's going to be more interesting stuff coming up on Revolution Radio. So don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. But in the meantime, Dave,
Be safe, everyone. And do like, share, comment, and subscribe to Rumble, YouTube, X, and Spotify.